Ciao and benvenuti to Tortellino time. Today I'll be doing some lentil burgers and it is a vegetarian recipe what I'll be doing, but I will tell you how to adapt to a vegan recipe if you're vegan. Also, I will be making 4 different types of burgers. I will be doing some on the hob, pan fried, but also some in the oven, and I also will be doing some with the whole lentils and some with mushed lentils to see what the difference is in texture and flavor. Having soaked 300 grams of lentils for 24 hours and changed the water also 3 times, this morning I cooked them, and I'm now removing all of the water and I'm pressing them now with my spoon to ensure that they are as water-free as they can be. When I cooked them, I covered them in cold water and I left a good inch above the top of the lentils, and I let them come to the boil, and then I let them cook on a simmering point for about 25 minutes, and then I turned them off. I also added a couple of bay leaves and a pinch of salt. These are cold now. If you are in a hurry, you can always, once they reach the boil and they're cooked, put them under the cold water tap and they will cool down much quicker. The water from the lentils to me is like liquid gold. I'll place the lid on and I'll put it in the fridge, and my next recipe will be based using this water. I'm not altogether sure exactly what I'm going to be making, but as and when it is ready, that will be up here. I have split the lentils 50-50 and I'm going to be whizzing these, but I will not be going all the way. I don't want them to be too smooth, just a little bit of texture left. And that's perfect, a bit like baby food, but a little texture left. And time to move on to some of the other ingredients. A couple of white onions, food processor ready. I have cleaned and chopped a couple of red bell peppers and they can go in. 4 cloves of garlic, skin removed, go in. I will be adding some red chili flakes in a little while, the dry stuff, but Julie came through earlier with this tiny little chili that she picked from her garden, so I thought I'll add it. You don't have to, but if you go any fresh chilies, a tiny little amount will go in very well. And like the lentils, I will not be going too fine. I will chop them, but I will leave a little bit of texture so that when we eat the burgers, you can identify various ingredients. This machine has got a chop setting, so it will do for me. And that's perfect. Within less than 20 seconds they're done. Let's have a look. You can see what I mean. They are fairly still chunky, but obviously all lovely chopped. And I split the vegetables 50-50, and using a spatula I've just cleaned my food processor so that there is no waste. And I'm now starting with the rest of the ingredients. These are dry breadcrumbs, and I'm putting 3 dessertspoons of breadcrumbs in each bowl. This is parsley, which I chop when it's fresh and keep it in the freezer for the winter. But if you do not have access to fresh parsley or frozen fresh parsley, by all means you can use the dry stuff as well. Obviously the ingredients are identical in both cases, it's just the texture is going to change, and I'm now using some chili flakes as I mentioned before, just a little pinch. This is dry mint, again half a teaspoon in each batch, 1 and 2. Smoked paprika, again half a teaspoon in each batch. This is cumin, and I'm going to be putting in 1 teaspoon in each batch, if I can get it out, there. And dried oregano, again 1 teaspoon per batch, like so. Eggs next, and if you're vegan, you can actually substitute the eggs with flax seeds, ground flax seeds, and for 2 eggs, replace them with a couple of tablespoons of ground flax seeds, but add also 5 tablespoons of water and leave it to set for 5 minutes. Alternatively, you can use also mashed banana or chickpea water, but I'll give you the quantities in the description. This is grated Parmesan cheese, and I'm adding a couple of dessertspoons per batch. Again, if you are vegan, you can substitute the Parmesan with other nutritional yeast or with ground cashew Parmesan. The Parmesan will add to my burgers a lovely and elegant Mediterranean flavor. This is cheddar, and the purpose of the cheddar is to make them a little bit creamier. And of course you will notice already, if you're vegan, you can substitute the cheddar cheese with vegan cheddar cheese. And now that all of my ingredients are mixed together, actually no, I forgot salt. How could I? Pinch of salt in here and a pinch of salt in here as well. Also some pepper. And there you go, and some pepper here. And let's see what they feel like. They're a little bit wet, so I'm going to add another small handful of breadcrumbs, maybe a little bit more. And that's much better. This is the batch with the lentils which I whisked. Let's move over here. They feel drier because the lentils are still whole, so I don't think I'll need any more breadcrumbs. Okay, so one additional dessert spoon in here because they're a little bit more liquidy, but I'm going to add a little olive oil before I proceed with the cooking. So just a little amount in each bowl. And I will mix each batch one more time to ensure that the olive oil is properly absorbed. Time to make some burgers. I'll start by putting a little olive oil on top of some baking paper and I'll spread it with a brush. This is to ensure that the burgers don't get stuck to the baking paper, but also that they cook underneath with some oil. I will be using a shape cutter to make my burgers today. This is 8 centimeters in diameter, and this is what we use to make cookies or mince pies, and it's ideal for this job. And I'll start with the ones on the left here, the mushed lentils first. Using a spoon, I'm pressing it down to make sure that my burger is nice and compact. And whilst pressing with the spoon, I gently remove the cutter, and there it is, beautiful burger. So compact them well, and also you can make them thicker or thinner. This one, for example, I made it a little bit thicker than that one. This is about an inch, that one is about a couple of centimeters. Entirely up to you. And I've made 7 nice and chunky beef burgers. Some are chunkier than others, but they look absolutely beautiful. And I'll do the same with the whole lentils next. And like before, I have lined up my baking tray with some baking paper, and I'm now filling in my first one. I'm showing you this because these are whole lentils, of course, and I want to show you if they're easier or more difficult than the previous batch. So ensure that you press them well with your spoon and gently lift it up. And yeah, just as easy. I got 7 burgers from the last batch. I'm assuming that this will also yield 7 burgers, so I'll carry on and I'll see you when they're ready. And 7 it is. I need to do a little reshuffle as I need to put some in the oven and I need to fry some others. So I'm moving this here. And I'll move some of these over here, so I will have 8 which will go in the oven. I'll bake them, and the other 6 will fry them on the pan. The back row here are the mushed ones, and these are the whole lentils, but before they go in the oven I will put a tiny little amount of olive oil on top of each of my burgers. And using my little brush, I ensure that the entire surface is covered with oil. And these are ready for the oven, but I am not ready for the oven as I'm doing a couple of side dishes tonight with these. One is going to be chunky chips, Sicilian style. I'll show you what I do with those, and then I'll turn the oven on so that I can make best use of electricity so they can cook together. This is a very large potato which I chopped into very chunky bits. As you can see, there are about 2 centimeters here, 1 centimeter, and so on. Also, I partly boiled them, so they are 3/4 of the way cooked. Then I drained all the water and I left them to cool down, and I'll add them into a bowl now. The reason why I partly boiled them is because my oven is not going to be on for very long, approximately 20 minutes. So they are almost cooked on the inside. So the purpose here is to get them all lovely and crisp on the outside and also finish cooking them on the inside. Wonderful. Next thing I do, I add a generous amount of olive oil on top of all of my potatoes. This is a sprig of fresh rosemary which I picked from my garden earlier, and I'm chopping it into little pieces so that it is not too intrusive. You can also use dry rosemary if you do not have access to fresh rosemary, but obviously if you can get hold of fresh rosemary, much better. And I'm now adding a very generous amount of smoked paprika, most probably 1.5 teaspoon. I love it because it will give my potatoes a beautiful earthy flavor and a wonderful color. I'll leave the salting of them to the end once they're cooked, but I'll mix them all together and make sure that all of the oil and the paprika and the rosemary is equally distributed across the potatoes. And as I've already got a tray lined up with baking paper, and the baking paper is also covered in olive oil, I'm going to move this out of the way so that they can be fried anyway, and I will use this one to do my potatoes. And this is great as this is a lovely big tray and I can spread my potatoes without overlapping. I should say, by the way, that I left the skin on my potatoes because there is a lot of fiber and we love it. And now I am ready to turn the oven on, and I'll put my potatoes and my burgers in the oven together. Temperature wise 180 degrees if it's a fan assisted oven like mine, otherwise 200 if it's a normal conventional oven. The potatoes will stay in for the duration 20 minutes. With the burgers 15 to 20 minutes, but halfway through, after 10 minutes, I'll turn them around. But I'll show you so that you can see what they look like. In the meantime, I'll crack on with the ones which I'm going to fry. And this process is not going to be much different to any other burgers you might cook at home. Olive oil and moderate heat number 7. And as soon as the oil starts warming up, very gently, I'll add my burgers. I'm finding that the ones I've whisked are easier to handle. You can see this one has scrambled away a little, but it's not a big deal. And I'll turn the temperature slightly down to medium, number 5. And I'm going to leave them. I will not be touching them or doing any tinkering with them. And for a good 5 to 7 minutes, I want the bottom to get lovely and crusty, and then we can flip them over. In the meantime, I'll show you how I make my avocado sauce to go beautifully with the burgers. I just have a nice and ripened avocado. I'm using a fork to mash the avocado. You can also use a food processor if you like. I prefer the fork as, again, I don't want it to be too smooth, whereas like this it's got to be a little bit more texture. Anyway, regardless if you're using a fork or a food processor, it goes into a bowl. I'm going to half a lemon, and I'm going to use only half and squeezing the juices out. Don't forget to go back in and remove any of the pips like I've done in my case. A little salt, pepper, handful of tomatoes. This is a shallot, or you can also use a small red onion if you like, or white onion, and 1 small clove of garlic. And my last ingredient is going to be a generous spoon of green pitted olives. If you got one of these machines, great. If not, you can also use your knife, but this is really good. I'll put it in, and within a few seconds it will chop everything for me. Again, I'm not gonna go too mad, as I like texture, so this is perfect. And I'll pick it up and add it to the rest of the ingredients there with the avocado. There is a little oil already with the olives, but I'm going to add a tiny little amount. And my last ingredient is some parsley. Again, this is the same parsley from before, frozen fresh and kept in the freezer. But you can of course use fresh parsley as well. Or you can also use coriander if you like, or both. I haven't got any coriander, so I'm sticking to parsley. One final mix, and I already know that Julie is absolutely going to love this. Whenever we have burgers, we always make some kind of avocado sauce or guacamole sauce. We love it. But let's try this one. Outstanding. It's really delicious. And time to turn the burgers around. They do smell absolutely wonderful, but I have to be really honest with you. I'm really struggling in turning them over without making a mess. So I'm going in with a couple of spatulas and very gently, oops, they're all coming apart. This is not good. They smell wonderful, but they look like they've been in a car crash. But let's take a look at the ones in the oven. Hopefully they will be easier to turn around and retain their shape. And here we go. They definitely look a lot better. The question is, am I going to be able to turn them around? Yeah, without making a massacre? Yes, of course I am. Look, they're good. And it looks to me like they're almost ready, so I'll pop them in for another 5 minutes and then we can get everything out. Potatoes, let's have a quick look. I'll just turn them around as well, so that I get the skin side also a little bit brown. And in they go for another 5 minutes. Okay, so everything is out of the oven and I've dished them up. I've done also a beautiful looking dish with the ones from the oven for the benefit of the photo as well. And the ones in the oven, they are absolutely perfect, exceptional. They held the shape, no worries at all. The one I did in the frying pan, I have reshaped them with my hands, but I have to be honest, they are a bit of a car crash, as I mentioned earlier. So I will not be eating these tonight. The saving grace is that I'll put them in the fridge, and because I have reshaped them, they will cool down, and then we can eat them cold tomorrow, the day after, whatever. But time to taste now. And I'll go here and I'll do a taste of a fried one with the lentils whole and see what I like. They might be a little bit of a sad looking burger, but good God, they're delicious. Let's try some with where I've actually whisked the lentil. Actually, ironically, the flavor is very similar, but they're a little bit more tasty than the whole lentils. I suppose it's not surprising because they most probably release a little bit more of the goodness. So, not great looking burgers, but really tasty. Let's move on to the ones we've baked in the oven. Likewise, I'll do one with the whole lentils first. They're milder in taste and quite delicious as well. They're a little bit more, I would say, elegant than the ones fried, but I would not be able to pick one over the other in terms of favorite. And now let me try one where I mush the lentils in baked in the oven. They're definitely better. I don't know why, but they're definitely better than the whole lentil ones. And let's try with a bit of my avocado sauce, just to make Julie jealous.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Oh God, the combination is absolutely wonderful. And just to make you jealous now, you need to try these. Everything is really delicious, so I'm really pleased. Try and make them, and if you want to fry them, my advice would be to add an extra egg. Most probably was a little bit mean with just one egg, so an extra egg that should give you enough of a texture and to ensure that they do not fall apart for the ones you fry. The ones in the oven, they're spot on. Arrivederci, grazie, buon appetito, and thank you for watching. Ciao ciao!